So let's. I mean, we were I started talking about college football, so let's just start from there. Georgia looks like Georgia again. Beat the living crap out of Kentucky in a at home, and they look like the best team. I think that was obviously not a good game, but I can understand them being number one. I mean, at this point, like looking at the way college football is, I mean, I think Georgia is likely to. I mean, I think they're likely to make the playoff. I don't think there's anybody else in the SEC that's at their level at this point or anywhere close, and I don't think they're going to beat them. But that being said, wouldn't surprise me if Alabama's in the SEC championship game, just because you look at the rest of the teams and Tennessee and LSU. I just don't, and Auburn. I just don't know that those teams are going to beat them. Now, but that's not to say that Alabama's awesome. Alabama makes a lot of plays, but they also make a lot of mistakes. And so they did enough against Texas A&M to get by. The combination of the defense playing really well and Jalen Milroe making enough plays to keep them in it. But they could lose. The thing is, Alabama could win all those games. They could also lose at least two of them because they make so many mistakes. They allow these games to be close, and when you allow these games to be close, it becomes the chances of you losing get a lot higher. So I thought that was interesting. But the game of the weekend was the Oklahoma Texas game. I mean, it's one of those games, Clark. This game, just because of that, it's on a neutral field. It had like a legitimate. It's the most legitimate neutral field that there is because half the crowd is Texas fans, half the crowd is Oklahoma fans. It's at the Texas State Fair, so it's absolutely insane, and the atmosphere is just incredible. And it was one of those games. Like I thought Texas made some mistakes, and Alabama capitalized on them. And, I still think, if you go player for player, I think Texas probably has a better team, but they weren't the better team in that game. And Oklahoma deserved credit for the defense that they played, coming down at the end to score at the end. But that was a game that could have easily gone either way. And I don't think Texas is done yet. I think Texas still has a chance. These teams could probably going to rematch in the Big 12 championship game. We'll see, which I hope that would be awesome. But that's a hell of a turnaround for Oklahoma from where they were last year to play like they did yesterday. That was quite impressive.
Yeah, it was a really exciting. I mean, just that's one of those things that the NFL can't replicate, like the atmosphere at that. Like when you're even just watching on TV, like you just see how well. Especially I was watching the Field Pass with Pat McAfee, and so he's like on the field, and so you just see how like crazy everybody is, and just everybody's just really into it, and it's just like, and that's the thing. Like even when we go to the 12-team playoff, those games are still going to matter because those are rivalries that go back. That's like over 100 years old. So yeah, that's still going to matter, and it still comes down to like, I mean. That's like what Matthew McConaughey was saying during the game, which I know I'm quoting Matthew McConaughey, but he was like, yeah, you win this game, then you basically get bragging rights for the rest of until next year, because you won that rivalry game. It's the same thing with like Bama and Auburn, and I mean some of like Michigan, Ohio State, same thing.
Yep.
Same kind of rivalry. So yeah, it was an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and the noon, it was crazy. Like all the good games on Saturday were in the noon window, so it was like the Missouri LSU game was nuts. That was just an insane asylum the whole time. You had no idea what's going on with LSU's defense. So LSU's their games are just awesome because it's just you never know what's going to happen. The offenses are marching down the field. Jaden Daniels is going nuts, so it's wild. So I hope the rest of their games continue like that. Unfortunately, their defense isn't good, but that's the reason why the games are like that. But I hope that continues. I think I watched on Sunday morning. I watched the USC Arizona game in its entirety, and Clark, USC is a fraud. They're a fraudulent team, and we just need to accept it. Like we talked about, I just talked about LSU's defense not being good. LSU is at least playing good teams and getting lit up by good teams. Ole Miss and Missouri are pretty good. USC is getting lit up by San Diego State Arizona State has one win. They're 1-5. Arizona was lighting them up with a backup quarterback. Like, it's USC's defense is a joke. It's a travesty. What's going on with them? They literally, I mean, they can't stop a nosebleed, and
Yeah,
so it's
it sounds like Lincoln Riley is the Mike D'Antoni of college football. Because I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. It's
because this
all
goes back to
offense.
Oklahoma. His defenses weren't good there either.
Yeah, all offense, very little defense. They can't tackle anybody. So I think it's fascinating, just the way this team plays. But I mean, I thought it the whole season. Nobody's getting through the Pac-12 without losing a game. I don't think there's going to be an undefeated team in the Pac-12 just because there's so many. The teams are so close together. But there's no way to me USC wins the conference. I don't think they're beating Oregon or Washington, and with a team like that that's just so unbalanced toward one side or the other. And the thing is, USC's offense didn't play well, and they still scored 28 points. So it's in regulation, and then they got, the 2 touchdowns in overtime. But, yeah, I don't know if they can keep this up. And that brings up, I mean, this is going to be a fascinating game. They're going to Notre Dame this weekend, okay? And it's supposed to be windy and rainy. So we'll see how it goes. Like, look, and I was surprised when I looked at the lines, like Notre Dame favored by 3 points. And I was just kind of like, really? Like, I watched Notre Dame, and they just got their ass kicked by Louisville. And so I'm kind of fascinated because crazy shit happens in all these USC games. And so we could get a wild one because I have no idea what's going on with USC. If their offense doesn't really play well, they could be in trouble, but they can score so quickly. Literally,
Yeah.
like Notre Dame could probably have the ball for 45 minutes in the game. USC could probably still beat them. Just because of that's the way that they're structured. So and back to talk about Notre Dame for a second. Notre Dame's not good. I mean, I don't know another way to say it. I've been watching them in the past few weeks. They lose a heartbreaker to Ohio State, which I really don't think they've ever gotten over it. They managed to win a game at Duke that looked as awful as it could in a win, and then they just get throttled by Louisville. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the players they have are not as good as we thought they were, or what the deal is. But they're certainly not making the playoff, and man, they are not fun to watch at all. That is like watching paint dry. So I'm really fascinated by that. But what do you think? You agree with me that USC is a fraud?
I mean, it seems like it. I mean, when your defense is that bad, I mean, you got it. Like, especially the teams they're playing. Same thing with Notre Dame. I mean, I have no interest in watching Notre Dame play. I mean, it's not fun. Okay, they seem to not be able to do very much at all on offense for most of the game. So
yeah. So before we move on to the NFL, I mean, I just want to say, listen, man, I was wrong about Colorado. Like, they got 4 wins, and they're probably gonna win 2 more games and go to a bowl. So I was definitely wrong about that. That was really impressive that they're able to make them into a decent team that quickly. And LSU, man, boy, I was really wrong about them. Like, I thought LSU was a championship contender, and the teams that I picked for the playoff are still alive: Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. 3 out of the 4 anyway. LSU obviously is in big trouble, and but I'm just shocked because it's one thing if you just, all right, well, their scheme's bad and they don't have the players. LSU has 3 or 4 guys on their defense that are going to be in the NFL. A couple of them are going to be first round picks. So I don't get it. I don't understand. You can't stop Missouri. Like these aren't even like Lane Kiffin. I get it. Lane Kiffin, they can pile up points on people. I understand that. But Arkansas, you're giving up 30 points to. And Missouri's lighting you up in the first half. Like, I don't know what's going on there, and it doesn't look like it's getting fixed anytime soon.
Well, some people, they criticize Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. They're like, well, he can't win big games. Well, I would push back on that and say he's at Notre Dame. I mean, there's a limit to how many good players he can get, and he would get into these big games against teams that were clearly much better than Notre Dame. But now that makes you wonder because he's at LSU, and they clearly have the players. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a bad coach at LSU and you still get great players there. So I don't understand it. Like, I mean, they got their asses kicked by Florida State, and Florida State is good. They're not. Right. I don't think they're great, they're pretty good. But I mean, for you to just in the first game of the year, you've been planning for this, all off season, and you get your asses handed to you in the first week of the season. I mean, you know,
Well,
so
and you give up 55 to Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss is a good team, but let's not go crazy here. 700 something yards.
yeah,
Like, it's one thing to be all right. Our defense needs some work, but man, that is rough.
yeah,
The other thing I wanted to say was, I hear a lot of people going, well, the Pac-12 is the best conference, blah, blah, blah. And, we get into this whole debate because people think the SEC gets too much credit and they're overrated and they shouldn't get this much, whatever. And it's like I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what the best conference is. I don't. But what I'm going to say is, the Pac-12 teams are all pretty good. They're all good enough to beat each other. I don't know that means, oh, well, they've got the best conference now because of that. I would say this, they're definitely in the conversation because the Big Ten is basically a 3-team conference and the rest of it's pretty much dog shit. So, but the SEC does, if you put a couple of the teams that are like in the middle of the SEC, South Carolina, Kentucky, like they would beat a lot of Big Ten teams in my opinion. So I don't know that, does that mean the Pac-12 is the best conference? We'll see. But we don't have a lot of out-of-conference games or a lot of evidence to show what really anybody is. So it's hard for me to...
Same thing with people saying, well, Michigan, I think, is the best team. They have not played anybody, okay? Right. Like, literally, I have no idea.
Yeah, you don't know how good some of these teams are, and that's the thing with the Pac-12. I don't know how good they are because the only teams they're playing are each other. So I can't really. It's hard for me to tell. And like Washington's scoring all these points, but again, they haven't played. Now Washington plays Oregon this Saturday, so we'll find out. What happens? Who's legit from that? But yeah, I'm not going down that road of, well, they're the best conference. I think my opinion on this whole thing is like I think the SEC is still really good, probably the best. I just think a lot of these other teams have been able to catch up to it. And Colin Cowherd said it on his show today. Now, and this may sound a little bit disturbing to some people, but now it's not just the SEC paying players.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to pay players now. So it looks a little more, I think college football looks a little more even because of that. I think the other conferences are starting to work their way up. I think they've gotten better. I don't think the SEC has necessarily gotten worse.
Right.